Kagurabachi Chapter 69 is here, so let's talk about it, but spoilers beware. Alright, so last week we started testing a new style where instead of narrating the entire chapter, I just give a brief recap, and the response to that has been split down the middle, it really feels like. Half the people really missed the full panel by panel breakdown, and half the people are happy with the new recap format. So I'm still kind of torn on what to do, but since we've only done one video in the new style, I feel like I at least got to give it a couple more and then really sit back and look and see what makes more sense. So we are going to be doing the brief recap style again for this one, so my apologies to those of you who look forward to the narration. We might go back to that, but still undecided. In any case, Chapter 69 picks up right where we left off with Chihiro and Double H facing off, except now a new player enters the game as we have Ikura, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this is Iori's classmate that we briefly met a couple chapters back, the one that stood up to Kuguri and Toto at the start, and then Iori prevented him from, getting killed, basically. Well, we find out that he was basically an outcast, a loner, but Iori spoke to him and befriended him. So he really wants to help her. And so he's on a personal mission to track her down and help her as well because he realizes she's in trouble. This, of course, brings him to the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel, where he ultimately exits the elevator right in the middle of Chihiro and Double H's fight. So Chihiro tosses him the key because he realizes that this guy really just wants to help Yori. So he says, hey, I respect what you're doing here. Go take this key to the roof, give it to Yori. And he's like, bet. And he goes to do that. Meanwhile, Chihiro and Double H continue their fight. Meanwhile, on the roof, Iori is still wrestling with which path she should choose. Should she go back to her old life or should she embrace this new life as Samura's daughter? Well, while this is happening, all of these soldiers start pouring onto the roof. Soldiers isn't the right word. All of the residents of the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel are pouring up to the roof to try and get her because the bounty that's been placed on their head. And interestingly, a lot of these people are people the Masumi have already dealt with. They've already cut them down, but they are now up again, surging for them, almost like zombies. So they presume that it must be some member of the Hishaku sorcery that has them like mindless puppets or something. And Kuguri himself is also up there, and Ro is helping to, fend him off right now. I think this is Ro. Maybe it's Samura, but I think it's Ro. So all that's happening, and then she's struggling with what she should do, but then he shows up, tosses her the key, and is like, you gotta come back to school. And it's that moment that solidifies her decision. Not that she should go back to her past life, but she wants to protect people's ordinary lives like his. And it's at that moment that she awakens as Samura's daughter and starts wielding the white purity style, and that's where the chapter ends. All right, first of all, my initial thoughts, this was a very brief chapter. And I think it was still 18, 19 pages. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but just not much happened, right? It was essentially Ikura shows up and we get the reveal that, Yori's got some skill here. And I like that, she's now aura farming along with the rest of the cast. But this moment here was incredible. And I love the setup and especially the emotional setup to this by bringing in Ikura to have kind of the representation of humanity in the normal life, and maybe even the setup that you think that's going to push her to choose that, but in fact it being the thing that pushes her to choose the life as Samura's daughter. I absolutely love the way Hokuzono kind of flipped that on its head. And I just love this reveal because it makes too much sense, right? And even last chapter, we were talking about how because Iori was so conflicted that it might lead to her doing something drastic that kind of alters the direction things are going. And I think this moment is exactly that, right? That she is in fact a very skilled swordsman herself and is going to pursue this new life of, actually being who she is. And I love how this reveal sheds new light on this panel because this has been bothering me ever since it was introduced. And that's because we know that both Uruha and Samura are users of the white purity style, with Samura being the one to have taught Uruha. And then we also know the original creator of the technique. And forgive me, I don't remember it right now. I think Kuguri might have been the one that initially brought it up, but he said the original creator, and then these two were the only two that have mastered it. And yet there are 4 names on this placard. So I'm presuming that this one is probably Iori, and just because of the spell, everyone forgot that she was also maybe it's not fair to say master, but I bet she is a master of this style, considering her father has probably taught her her entire life as a way to protect her before he ultimately decided to, do the memory thing to truly protect her. And this just fits rather nicely into the overarching narrative of Kagurabachi, right? And the themes that Hokuzono has been playing with, namely sins of the father, and how the younger generation is going to deal with this burden that has been left to them by the older generation, and namely how their perspectives are going to shift compared to their fathers. It's just interesting that they all three kind of share similar trauma. Maybe that's not the right way to put it, but just in terms of all of them having this largely influential like figure in their life, and now they are the ones kind of carrying that torch, how their POV will differ. And specifically with Yori, I'm just interested to see how that will play out. Like, will she align with her father on the viewpoint that these sword bearers are evil and they need to be done away with? Or will she have a different perspective on it and might even be the key to getting through to him? Now, ultimately, long term, I don't see Samura making it through this arc. So even if she does get through to him, I don't think that means, we all just live happily ever after and he stops after killing the Hishaku. So there's obviously going to be some twists and turns in there, but could Iori even be an antagonistic force if she does align with her father, at least somewhat? Like, how is that going to affect the dynamic between her and Chihiro? There's a lot of interesting potential here. On the flip side, though, if they do remain allies, then I think we just found the person who's going to properly teach Chihiro the white purity style. And if he actually has like a master level person showing him the ropes there, then our boy's going to get even scarier. Also, I gotta say that I love Double H, man. With every chapter, he's becoming more and more of a favorite. Like, not only is he extremely skilled and badass, but he's able to go aura for aura with Chihiro, and he's just hilarious. Like, this made me laugh when Ikura showed up, and like in the middle of their intense fight, he's like, well, who's this guy? And to follow that up after Ikura's like impassioned speech, he's just like, okay, like seriously, who is this moron? I think I'm just nervous that after Sojo, Double H might also be like a one arc villain, and I just hope that's not the case. I hope he's here for the long haul. And then I happened to notice that somebody point out that the Viz translation of this moment was a bit watered down, and for those of you that, came from JJK, you'll know that John Weary and the translations there were like the bane of the community's existence. Now, up until this point, I haven't really heard that complaint with Kagurabachi, but I hope this isn't something that like will often happen, because I do agree that the translation's a little wonk here. And again, I don't speak Japanese, so maybe somebody else can fill us in even more, but apparently the way that I read it was, I need you at school when he threw the key. But according to this guy, the more accurate translation of that Japanese would be, I'd be lost without you. And I definitely think that's more powerful. So again, maybe this is like a one-off thing and the translators are typically very good. They've seemingly been in my read through of it, but you never know what you don't know. So hopefully we don't have a John Weary situation happening. And then finally, I wanted to talk about this scenario with all of these people seemingly being puppeted. Maybe that's not the best word to use, but like they are continuing to move even with fatal injuries, as we were told. So whose sorcery is this, right? It's obviously somebody from the Hishaku, so I would imagine it's Toto. So I'm very curious what she can actually do, especially combined with what we talked about last chapter with the way that Double H said that he got the room number from the general manager's brain, whatever that means. So she seemingly has some sort of brain control, for lack of a better word, where she can, manipulate these people even with fatal wounds, and maybe also manipulate information out of corpses. But maybe she got the information before he died. But actually, no, that's impossible because we saw him get sliced up. So it had to have been after he died, at least I imagine. Anyways, very curious about that. Would love to hear y'all's thoughts on what you think's going on here. But then also, I just love this shot because we have all of these zombies or puppets, for lack of a better term, but also the reminder that Samura is always watching. Now, I don't think that this necessarily means he literally has an awareness of this happening right now with his daughter. I don't think we're there yet, but I think obviously his interjection into this situation is coming sooner than later. I originally thought that, maybe Iori would grab one of the enchanted blades and that would alert him. That seemingly isn't what happened here, but still on the table. All right, I think that's going to do it for now, but I literally just finished reading the chapter, so maybe some more thoughts as time goes on, but please let me know all of your thoughts on this chapter down in the comments below, or better yet, join us over in the Discord. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching.